What was the most NSFW experience you've had at work? I worked overnight as a convenience store clerk when I was 20. A drunk woman came in and was thirsty but had no money. I offered her coffee for free since it's not inventoried or some tap water, but she didn't want them. She wanted apple juice. She offered to flash me for some apple juice. I said sure. She went off camera and lifted her top and bra for like 3 seconds. 3 great seconds. She went and took 2 apple juices. I didn't mind. She left happy. I was happy. It was a good night and all it cost was 2 apple juices on my tab. I got on a pallet that was lifted by a forklift. That was in turn lifted by another forklift so I could work on something up high when our cherry picker was dead. I wish this wasn't a true story. We were once having a discussion at work in which we couldn't remember who starred in the action movie XXX. So I figured I would just Google the answer. So I type XXX into my Google search on my work computer. But then I take a moment and stop and think, wait, that's not a good idea. And after a nanosecond of consideration, I solved my problem by adding the word movie. I googled XXX movie on my work computer, comma, it was Vin Diesel. BTW. Our CFO asked me to hack into the website of a photographer who had taken erotic pregnancy photos of him and his wife. Apparently the photographer was pulling a bait-and switch and had jacked up the price, and the CFO felt entitled to steal them for free. I was going to tell him it was unlikely I could just hack the site, because it's not like in the movies, but he showed me a sample image, and goddamn it, the image source was like gallery CGI file name equals IMG 123,413,515 and watermark equals true and size equals small. What are the odds? I told him I could do it, but he said that due to the sensitive nature of the content, I couldn't work on my own computer or leave his office until it was done, and I had to swear to secrecy. Also, he never got up from the only chair, so I had to kneel at his computer, installing Perl and widget and teasing out the numbering system for the pictures. 30 minutes later I staggered back into the cubicle farm, and my fellow programmers were like, what was this secret thing he wanted your help with? And I said I'm not allowed to talk about it, but my knees are really sore and I'm going to go home early today. One of the guys literally did a spit take before I realized how that sounded. I never did live that down. Although I did memorize the URL for the photos, in case I ever needed those pics in an emergency. I once had to test our antivirus, so I was tasked with infecting a virtual machine with viruses. It was weird for an IT intern to be told to surf the worst of the worst porn sites. I work in a strip club as a waitress and this one guy thought it was appropriate to try and stick his fingers into a dancer's hoo-ha. She punched him in the face and she was berated by the managers for mistreating a customer. Unbelievable. Mine is much tamer. Had a co-worker that used to wear fairly short skirts to work daily. Every morning she would pop by at the start of her day and sit on top of the desk across from me. Every morning I could see up her skirt, cause it was literally at eye level. Pretty weak compared to the rest of this thread. I sell mattresses and back when I first started I had a woman come in that looked straight out of Jersey Shore. I built some rapport and based on her needs recommended she try a bed. Instead of just laying on the bed like a normal human being, she proceeded to climb in the bed on all fours. With her ass facing me she looked over her left shoulder back at me and said, I feel like I could get a good duck on in this bed. Being new I wasn't really sure how to respond so I just said yep, I'm sure you could. Not very sexual I guess, but when I first started working in the hotel industry, a Delta flight attendant took a liking to me and kissed me on the mouth unexpectedly when she was very drunk. After that, she went out for a smoke and I told the bartender that she needed to be cut off, especially because I knew their crew had a morning flight in 5 hours. She came in and went back to the bar, and watching from afar I saw the bartender dump her beer and then point at me when she got pissed. I began helping a VIP guest get up to his room thinking that there was no way she could hop in the elevator before we ascended. False. She jumped in through the gap in the doors Indiana Jones style and screamed at me about how I ruined her night, all the while holding her middle finger up an inch from my face. She got out on a random floor and after the doors closed, this Fortune 500 CEO guest just nonchalantly asked, "What did you do? Get her pregnant?" Long story short, she was so drunk she couldn't remember her room number, caused a huge inconvenience for security, and wasn't listed as a guest at all on any of the rooms we had because of their company contract. She eventually made it to the room in the early hours of the morning, but because of her behavior our hotel property had to contact Delta, and I'm assuming she was let go or relocated because I never saw her again with our regular flight crew. To answer the question, it's probably a toss-up between that experience or the time that a mother offered me $500 to do a strip show for her daughter's bachelorette party. I've walked in on my boss banging the secretary on the copier. In his defense, he was married to the secretary, and it was a Saturday when the office was usually closed. The other night on a graveyard shift at my place of work, I was going from the front office to the kitchen to put some dishes away. Get to the kitchen, I decided to take the shortcut through the employee lounge. I opened the door and briskly hopped up a few stairs and heard the squeaking of someone getting up from a leather couch seat we have in the room. A coworker of mine seemed particularly shocked and was standing there, breathing heavily with a flushed face and neck. I asked how she's doing, and while adjusting her blouse, she said fine, just waiting for some stuff copies to finish printing. I said okay, playing dumb, and went to the kitchen. On the way back to the front I stopped by the copy machine and saw no copies being made, and I'm quite sure I walked in on my co-worker masturbating at 4 AM. Ducked a customer in the disabled toilets when I worked in a bar. She was sober and up for it, so why the hell not? I was working at some big Canadian coffee chain when I was 16, and there was an annual meeting that the manager was organizing. I guess she couldn't find a babysitter for her son, so she brought him along. The problem with this is that he was actually a man in his 20s with the mental capacity of a toddler. The guy was easily a head taller than me and would wander onto the floor behind the counter, would come back into the kitchen where I was baking donuts, and would simply take it and eat it in front of me with a eating grin. Also, despite acting like a toddler, he apparently had a sex drive, and decided that pulling up women's shirts and grabbing boobs and butts was a good way to pass the time. So here I am, a 16-year-old trying to do my goddamn job when the manager's 21-year-old mentally challenged son just decided to very firmly grope my butt. I turned to him and told him to not do that, and to not touch me. Why? He asked me. I'm a man. Yo, I'm glad I'm out of there. The manager was a miserable old woman anyway. I consistently see the naked bodies of people I work with. I am a costume designer and it's common for actors to change in front of me. I see tits daily. When I was 18 I was doing IT work for a small financial services company accounting firm. Basically I was converting all of their paper files into electronic files and doing IT troubleshooting in the office. One of the bookkeepers was about 35 but pretty sexy, and she kept telling me she had trouble logging in from home, so I kept insisting she should bring her laptop into work, but she never did. Eventually I went to her apartment to fix a simple issue, but she told me her laptop was at work. I was really annoyed until she started blowing me. This continued as daily head in the filing room and pounding it out in the stairwell till I got fired when rumors spread because she used to hook up with one of the managing partners and he got mad about it. Best job I ever had. I used to set the scanner to run on ultra high scan, so a folder used to take 30 minutes to scan. I got paid to sit in front of a computer and watch Netflix while occasionally scanning folders and frequent get your D sucked breaks. I once forgot to put $sign in my VLOOKUP formula. I used to sell cell phones and service in undergrad. This was when smartphones were taking off in terms of speed and market penetration. One thing they told us to push was sports scores and such. They told us to get someone's favorite team and go to and show them the site. I was not a big sports fan, and immediately brain dumped this info. A month or two later I had a customer in a football jersey, and I was super close to hitting my quote and getting a bonus. So I was really reaching. I was going to show him that site but instead pulled up which was a porn site at the time. Maybe it still is. He liked that way more than football, and bought the phone. Posted this before. I used to be a store manager at sneaker sporting goods store in the mall. One of my co-managers was ducking one of my underage employees in the back stock room after the store closed on a regular basis. This was going on for several months apparently. I found out when said teenager came to me and she said that my co-manager promised her a raise that she never got. I asked her why he said that he would give her a raise. That is when she told me about physics in the stock room. I had to call the police and corporate about this. We arranged a sting with help of the girl, as she acted out for the police that to meet up with my co-manger after work. Basically caught him with his pants down, to use a term. This happened to a co-worker of mine while we taught together at an inner city high school. She went to the copy room one day and found two male students prison pounding each other. As she turned on the light and saw what was going on, they stopped, pulled up their pants, ran out of the room, and one smacked the papers she was holding out of her hand to stop her from following them. She didn't recognize them and we didn't have cameras, but one of them left their book bag in the room, which helped her identify them. Two things stuck out to me about this event. The first was that this woman was truly one of the kindest, most benevolent for the children type people this could have happened to. The second was that the kid giving it was a class bully who called other guys F-got all the time, yet was giving it to one of the loudest, proudest gay kids in the school. Hand job from a co-worker in an open cubicle office during work hours. She was showing me how to use new software. Someone brought a safe in for delivery and Aurora told them we didn't order a safe, so they left. Worked for a lawyer in a shared office with a few other attorneys. One of the attorneys, Albert, was a grumpy narcissistic asshole. Another one of the attorneys had a young female assistant named Isabel. We hit it off and got drinks after work a couple times. She had a boyfriend at the time, but she told me she had been planning to break up with him for a while and it seemed like something could definitely happen between us. The arsehole lawyer, who was about 20 years older than Isabel, took her to dinner, presumably as a professional guidance thing, but tried to kiss her. She was not having it. A couple weeks later, after she broke up with her boyfriend, we had sex in Albert's storage room on top of his old case files. A crazy homeless lady came into my job. I'm pretty sure she was on crack. She walked up to the counter, pulled down her shirt and said, "Is my bra strap straight?" Sadly, I saw more than her bra strap. People who use public restrooms are animals. I've cleaned it off a wall. Somebody ate in the urinal, found and disposed of itty panties left in the women's restroom. The toilet was clogged, and one or two people decided to eat on top of the clog. I had to help clean it. Then we had to call a plumber. All of those happened when I worked at a grocery store. Please be nice to those poor employees. Found and cleaned poop on the children's playground when I worked at a zoo. I'm sure there's more memories that I've suppressed. Said this story before, so I'm just gonna copy it. I have a co-worker that I became close friends with and we both have an immature sense of humor. During boring days we would send each other weird stuff, so we always knew to use our phone and data instead of the PC to avoid HR calls. So one day I was feeling rather horny and adventurous, so I went to the bathroom and took a pic of my boobs and got out and snapped it to him. The look on his face was priceless. I had sex with my GF at the time. It was at GameStop, after hours. We turned the camera off, but it still had that fully glass front wall, which was kinda cool, I guess. No one ever questioned why the camera was inexplicably off for a period of time. The counter was super uncomfortable though. Not great to be honest, but at least it's a story. Hi, I'm an EMT in the Boston area and I just wanted to share this experience with you cause it's kind of funny, weird, sad. So it starts as a typical 911 call. An elderly female fell and there is a possible head wound. We arrive on scene to find fire is already there and inside, so we proceed right in. The old woman lies alone and fell, hit her head and cut it in the process and passed out. She had woken up, found her head was bleeding and crawled to her phone to call her granddaughter for help. It was the granddaughter who called 911. The base of her walls looked like a horror movie, her fingers leaving bloody streaks down the hall where she had crawled. PT lived and made it home fine, so the scene was not great. We find the grandmother and start care. Standard stuff. However, the granddaughter is there too, and she is just flirty as hell, and not subtle about it. She was hiking up her dress past her calf lower extremities and towards her lower abdomen, and she wasn't wearing any underwear. Also, the granddaughter was in her late 20s. I did my best to ignore her, but she was right there in my face. She was flashing myself, my partner and the 3 other firemen while her grandmother was being backboarded and collared, bleeding, right in front of her. Edit, yeah, she was cute, but 85 is a little too old for me. While working for a major company, I was working in a section of the building that should have been closed off, but my job function was overlooked and there was nowhere else to go. Basically a giant warehouse with a small office on the other side of it. Since the constructions was going on my side of the building, I would enter through one of the side doors and immediately go to my office and sleep with the lights off. I had a hard hat and a high-vis vest, same kind as construction, for lunches so people would not question it. One day I leave for lunch and come back to find out that the construction crews accidentally removed the support structure for the HVAC unit on the roof. It crashed through the roof and destroyed part of that small office. After that I used one of the guest computers in the other side of the building to pretend to work. I had a co-worker who had never heard of TubGeral. I told him how hot of a photo it was and that he should totally check it out when he gets home. Dude went over to his work computer and googled it. As I was helping a customer out, the whole store paused momentarily in response to the echoing ugh that came from the back of the store. He stormed over and gave me the death glare. I reminded him that I told him to wait till he got off work. I have mentioned it before but I will mention it again. Mixing Dawn with bleach was standard protocol at this one place I worked. We did this in a small room with no ventilation. For the record, most dish soap has a form of ammonia as an ingredient. Years ago a slightly drunk customer thought I was cute and she walked away. She yelled, "You to duck or what?" I was ducking, mortified. Co-worker number 1. I was making out with this girl and I noticed she had no lips. Co-worker number 2. She had no labia. Co-worker number 1 and I just glanced at each other. How the hell did he get there from that? Used to work at a restaurant in TX called Jim's. I was in high school and just got kicked out of the house for being a little it and taking my aunt's car to see this chick in the middle of the night. Anyway, I had to make ends meet to pay for rent and food, so I started working the late shifts the restaurant would offer. There was a girl there who would only work those shifts because her boyfriend would work during the day and she needed the car to get to work. One day she showed up like 2 hours late and she looked pissed off. I overheard her telling the manager her BF wouldn't let her use the car, so she had to take the bus after a huge fight. Fast forward to the end of the shift, which was around 1 AM. She was calm now and the place was dead, so we are just standing around. Since she came in last she would be the one to close the store, but since it was after the buses stopped she asked me for a ride. I said no problem. She said she would make it up to me. The store closes and I'm waiting in my car for her to come out. The manager stayed to do paperwork. She gets in the car and just asks me if I ever had a BJ. I had several up until this point, but still tell her no. She grabs my D and starts massaging it till it's hard and then takes it out and starts sucking it. She did not have a gag reflex either, because I check, or maybe my D is just too small. So I come and zip up. I then say, "Well, where am I taking you?" She said, "Don't worry, my BF will be here in a min." So I took off when she got out. Women are ducking ruthless. A lot of these comments in this thread are already starting to sound like porn fantasies. I used to manage a charity shop. My girlfriend at the time came over once it was closed for the day and we spent all evening dressing up in different outfits and ducking each other's brains out. Worked for a catering company and this particular party had belly dancers. Well, the belly dancers needed a place to change. The best place apparently being in the back room, where I was plating salads. One winked at me. It was a good day. Was a teenage lifeguard for an indoor pool. Wild lifeguard parties were held after hours. Sex with a co-worker in the office. Watching a friend masturbate on webcam during work. Blowjobs from a friend while I was on conference calls. Years upon years ago I put myself through college as a maintenance man at a public school in Mick. Dated a teacher at the school and did some NSFW stuff in the projector room above the auditorium, and the computer room, and the dark room and the photography art room. Someone wrote in an SQL query women cunt instead of count. Surprised at the lack of restaurant workers posting here. Food service is basically Burning Man. Morning blowjobs under my desk. Back in my college days, I worked at a Pizza Hut as a delivery driver and was sort of dating a girl I worked with, and we would pretty regularly fool around in the walk-in. More fun than it sounds, honestly. because walk-ins get super cold. A coworker was engaged and was talking about the cake toppers. She had no idea they made queer ones. Went to a computer and googled gay toppers. Was not getting the results she expected. My former boss used to bang hookers in the office next to mine. These were not nice hookers, but like meth heads. I could hear and smell everything, and they would walk past my office door 30-45 minutes later all sweaty and stanky and act like nothing happened. The one lady only had 8 teeth in her whole head. I met her at our front gate, and she told me that she was from the bank and was here to see my boss. Full stop. I got a blowjob in the storage room at work at my last job. Girl had one amazing bubble butt. Could suck the chrome clean off a bumper. Edit. Job not last night. People not wearing lab coats or gloves when working with biohazard materials. Were your PPE scientists? I had a co-worker at my second job ever with Radio Shack that would offer BJS in the back room for $50. Never did though, but a co-worker did. Sex in my office every Friday night. Our SQL server databases are auto-commit by default. Me. I wanna kill myself. Co-worker. I'll join you. I used to work at a lab at my former university. Beside the lab was my office, my boss's office, which you had to walk through mine to get to, and a storage room with biological equipment connected to my office. One day I was working late, 9 PM, and my girlfriend was in the area, so she stopped by. Anyway, things end up getting hot and heavy in my office. At one point I have her sitting on the desk, pants off, and we're going at it. I hear someone coming down the hall taking their keys out. Now this is the only locked door in the corridor, so I know where they're headed. We immediately stop. I turn my monitor off, and we get into the storage room as fast as possible, pants in hand. Since I'm only wearing a condom on my bottom half, we go around the corner to the darkest area of the storage room. The room is an L, so you would need to take about 2 steps in to see us. I hear someone start rummaging around in my boss's office, then walk back into my office. All I can think is fuck, don't come in here. Next thing you know, the storage room door is being unlocked. They step in and are about 6 feet from us now, without turning the light on. They grab something from a shelf closest to the door and leave. The next morning my boss asks me how late I worked, because she came back around 9 o'clock to grab something and the light was still on. TLDR. Boss came back to work late. Almost walked in on girlfriend and I doing it in the office. We hide around a corner, both pantless. Boss gets within 1 step of seeing us before leaving. Reading this thread at work. I was in the introductory meeting for the new director, our adept. Everyone from our team, some project managers and the director of HR were in the room. He started his slideshow and all quickly realized it was the wrong PPT. It was porn. The first slide that came up was of a dude who had just finished on a chick. Close-up of the girl covered in cum and a D. We all sat in stunned silence for a few moments before the new deer frantically tried to do something. He was in full panic mode and just fumbled around for an even longer period of time before someone finally walked up to the projector and turned it off. He mumbled some apologies and we all awkwardly filed out of the room. We looked back in time to see the HR director close the conference room door. Just the two of them. Was working with my mom's boyfriend at the time during summer break. He owned a glass installation business. He asked me to hand him a tool. I hadn't seen a concrete rivet gun before. Of course I pulled the trigger, being an idiot teen. Of course the safety was bad, him being a cheap ass on getting things fixed. It barely missed his head.